That's what I like.
Oh, what a piece of work, what a piece of work, what a piece of significance there. So you're listening to Things We Like, and what that was...
That's What I Like.
That's what I like.
By Chaz and Dave.
It's absolutely incredible. So that is the voice of Mr. Paul Coyte, who I love, who I like, and I'm Eamon Holmes. And you are listening, and hopefully you're subscribing. You're liking and subscribing to this episode of Things We Like. And you're probably listening to us and watching us on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple.
Now, look, so Things We Like. The whole idea of this is that we often chat about stuff that we like, going back years, and there's so many random things that we like and we share a like of.
Yeah.
Right? So this fair?
So there's a real feel-good factor
to
this.
So the whole idea of the show is that we will discuss the things that we like and also people that we like we will have as guests.
But look, that the words to that whole tune there, parts of that, it's amazing. Things like comics that he likes, the Beano and the Dandy, actors like Terry Thomas.
Well, look at this. Cheese and onion sandwiches, Derby Chinaware, Fiddles and Jigs, Woogie Me Dog, Auntie Vi having a swear, right? Did you have an auntie that used to swear a lot? Did you have an Auntie Vi?
There were plenty of people who swore by family, yes.
Taking my dad for a pint or two on a Sunday morning stroll. Licorice pipes, baggy suits, Glenn Hoddle scoring a goal. Strangely, I quite like that one. Very good.
He was some player, though.
Oh, yeah. See, there's one that I like very much. Yeah, fantastic legs. Yeah. Lovely. We'll get him on. Catching a pike. Right about this, I never fished. Did you fish?
No,
I never fished. Riding my bike.
I did. That's a lie. We fished in a net that you would catch frogs and tadpoles and things in.
But you never did the windy business?
Didn't do the proper.
No, me neither.
No.
Riding my bike. What was your bike? What bike did you have?
I had a rally bike.
I had a rally bike.
How do you spell that? RALEIGH.
That's right.
Yeah.
See, there were three back in the day. There was a chipper, which was the little one. There was the chopper, which was the big one. And I had the tomahawk, which was the one in between. I always wanted a chopper.
I wanted a chopper, and I could never get a chopper.
Yeah.
We couldn't afford the chopper.
But has there been things, as a kid, though, that years later you thought, I'm going to buy one of those just because I always wanted one as a kid?
Yeah, a chopper.
So did you get one?
It was like Paddy McGuinness for Children in Need. He cycled around most of the country on a chopper.
But did you ever buy a chopper?
No.
Because they had those seats, which are a little bit like Evel Knievel, right?
Weren't big enough for my bottom. Didn't really work.
Old wooden wheels, bowl of eels. No. Eels?
Uh-huh.
Do you like the eels?
No. Got me there.
Okay. And a couple more, because David Jason's going to join us very, very shortly, because David Jason, did you know that Chaz and Dave were originally going to do the theme for Only Fools and Horses?
Get out. Do the thing. You mean like record the theme tune?
That was the original, I believe that to be the case, that Chaz and Dave were going to do that.
I thought it was them.
Well, they were involved in the musical, because the musical that's gone in the West End, that's Chaz and Dave.
But not on the TV show.
But not the TV, because that was John Sullivan, right?
And John Sullivan wrote Fools and Horses?
Yes. Oh. And then sings the theme.
Didn't know that.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
So David's going to be with us in a second. I'll go through a couple more before we bring him in. Bubble and Squeak. Jumble Sales. Did you like Jumble Sales?
No.
It's only had new stuff. Oh yes, only had new stuff.
Well, I like things like my doggy. I like things like cars. Cars. You know what I like about cars in particular? Chrome, silver bits to shine.
Yeah,
just to polish.
Shiny colours.
So cars like from the 70s.
Yeah.
Had a lot of chrome. Cars don't really have chrome anymore. Everything's plastic.
You used to see people polishing the chrome on the cars. Yeah,
nothing goes as good as a good clean car.
Yeah.
I think a clean car actually performs better.
You think so?
I do.
But did you keep your car clean?
I did.
Did you, even inside?
I still do.
Yeah. No crisp packets and old business in there?
The way you would get to drive your dad's car, our dad's car, was that, see, my dad was a carpet fitter, so the car was always full of felt and gripper rods.
Yeah.
All sorts of messy things, whatever. So basically on a Saturday or Sunday, you'd say, Dad, did you want us to clean the car? But what that really meant is, Dad, if we clean the car, would you let us drive around the block in it or go to the petrol station and fill it up? Yeah.
See, my dad had a van, and he was a plumber, and I loved sitting in the front of the van. I used to love that. And even now, and I think it was only recently I went in a van and all the memories came flooding back. So I'd like to put sitting in a van in one of that's what I like.
My dad should have had a van, but ended up with a car because Mum wouldn't sit in a van.
Well, where did the carpet go then?
On the roof.
Oh, did it really?
Yeah. That's a whole other
So
story.
roll up the start and roof rack and then carry the... But were they huge? Were they huge rolls of carpet?
It didn't do much for your springs. The springs were always constantly laden down,
Yeah.
to be said. But anyway, all of that gets us to what we're talking about.
Yes, sir.
Feeling good, talking about things that make us feel good.
Yeah.
Thanks to Chaz and Dave, who could have recorded Fools and Horses, but they didn't. So what I'm saying is, this could have been them.
Stick the pony in me pocket. I'll fetch the suitcase from the van.
Oh, it's iconic. I mean, you can't have one without the other. You hear that music, you just associate it with the programme, and you associate it with this man. So, David Jason, lovely to see you. Great having you here.
Oh, bless you. Yeah, it's lovely to be here.
And how
Proper
important-
guest number one as well.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Things we like, and we very much like you. So thank you very much
like
for
you.
being with us.
Very much like you. How important? Did you like the theme music for Fools and Horses?
Well, yes, I did really. Obviously, I wasn't party to the construction of it. But I think what it did was to set up, if you like, the character of the time, which is, we're all a little bit like that. No VAT, no, you could take like cash is king and all of that. So he was a man of the people. The song suggested that he was a man of the people who flew by the seat of his trousers.
Yes.
And, didn't like really the authorities, but like most of us, he a little bit on the side. But that's what the music set up.
But all those big sitcoms, they all had music, good themes. When you think of the Vicar of Dipley or One Foot in the Grave, is a prime example.
Dad's Army, which was
Dad's Army.
Bud Flanagan, wasn't it? It was the old...
Yes. But that was very very old. It wasn't written
written
especially
for the show.
No, but they adopted it, and that's interesting, really, because they adopted it because those sort of songs, that sort of music, was very popular at the time, and so after you've played it a few times to a modern audience, they start to identify with it, and it helps you identify with the show. And there's a good reason why you have intro music like that. Is because, and I'm going back into the old days, we all talk about the bloody old days, but it's true.
Yeah.
That if you were in the other room and you were making the tea or you were doing something or reading the paper, whatever it was, their music would come on and they would say, "Oh, wait, Dad, it's on. It's all quick. Come on."
Yeah.
And so it gave people time to go, "Oh, wait a minute, I'll put that down." And the music is playing and you're not missing anything, but you're getting ready. You're preparing yourself for the programme.
So you're saying now you would simply pause it. You could record it, pause it, play it at your own convenience.
Yeah, you're right, absolutely right. So the need for a theme song, a theme music, is very, very much less than when it was invented.
Sure.
And that's what it was invented
I
for.
ask you, though, David, you were going to be in Dad's Army, right? You were going to the original Corporal Jones, isn't this true?
Get out.
That look at the face.
Seriously?
Wait for it, and that was going to. Is that true?
That's right.
They don't like it up them.
I don't look it up.
Yeah. Oh, so much better than Clive Dunn already.
No, don't take it away from Clive.
Yeah.
But yes, it's a true story. It's one of those strange stories that happen in the business. That I was called to the BBC, as hundreds of actors are all the time, constant turnover.
Yeah.
And I was asked through my agent, who put me up for that part of Corporal Jones, and to meet the producer and director at the BBC, which I duly went. And they asked me to read Corporal Jones and see. They told me he's 50 or 60 years old or whatever. And I was about 30 or 28 or whatever it was. So I adopted this voice, and you don't like it up, and so I did all that.
Don't panic,
Yeah, and they were so impressed that because they must have been running close to the time at that moment, they said, "You've got the job.
Yeah.
Would you like to do?" I said, "Would I like to do it? Major role on television." Yes. So they got in touch with my agent and had a little chat, and that was at about 11 o'clock in the morning. I went home, and then about 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon, the phone rang, and it's my agent and said, "I'm sorry,
You're kidding me.
you haven't got the job." What? I said, "What? I just went for an audition," and they said, "You've got the job." He said, "Yes, but they didn't know, the right hand didn't know what the left hand was doing." So I said, "What do you mean?" All that happened was that Bill Cotton had a word with the guy playing.
He was the head of entertainment, wasn't he?
Yes,
at BBC?
he was it. Sorry, yeah.
yeah.
And who played him eventually?
Clive Dunn.
Clive Dunn. He'd had told Clive Dunn that we've got a job for you after you finished with Spike Milligan, and it would be wonderful for you to do it in Spike. And he said, Clive Dunn said, "Well, now I'm going to do another series with Spike Milligan." So he said, "Oh, right." What they didn't know was in the wheels of motion at the BBC, they'd cancelled the next series with Spike Milligan.
Right. So
So now, in about lunchtime, Bill Cotton went for lunch with Clive Dunn, and he said they cancelled my show with Spike Milligan. He said, "Oh, that's all right, never mind. I've got a lovely part for you."
great.
And so he then went to see the producers and directors at the time, said, "I got him, I got Clive Dunn for you." He said, "We've already cast it." "With who?"
Yeah.
And he said, "An actor called David Jason." I said, "Who's David Jason?" And they said, "What was this actor?" They said, "Well, you don't know him, but we know Clive Dunn. So I've promised the show to go to Clive Dunn. And I can't be embarrassed. So you promised you wanted him. Yeah. So now you've got him."
Goodness me. Well, all's well that ends well, I suppose. When you look, life could have been so
Sliding doors,
different in so many ways. But the good thing is, Dad's Army is one of the show we've got here is called Things We Like, right? I like Dad's Army. I really like Dad's Army. What do you like? We've got you today. You're going to tell us 3 things that you really like. What's the first?
Anything. Round, it could be anything
Could
at
be
all.
sweeties, could be sport, could be film stars.
Oh, dear. I've had to stop myself speaking then because the door opened so wide. But I think basically I like to work. I like doing what we're doing. I like the sort of work where I have to invent a character, a person.
Yeah.
Right? If you think, like, I was offered the job eventually for Danger Mouse, was this mouse, a cartoon series, right? So I went along and I said to I was auditioning with hundreds of other people, and I said to the writer who was there, I said, "This character," I said, "what's he look like?" And he said, "Well, he's a mouse." I said, "Well, that doesn't help me. Have you got drawings?" So he went, yeah, hold on. And he opened his briefcase and pulled out. Right, so I looked at this and then I started to think, right, well, what's the man? What is he? What does he do? He's a Secret Service. He's a top Secret Service agent, and he works undercover with his assistant as right. Okay, so what's his assistant? It's a Penfold. Well, what's it? Well, he's like a mole type person, right? So Danger Mouse works for the private Secret Service. But if he's doing that, and I was looking at the character, and I was saying, he's very much in control, so his voice would be
tight.
Yes, would be just, "Good grief, Penfold." And so that is the way that I like to work, and I like to invent characters. I like to invent people. And in a way, it's how I've always sort of started. It's by hiding my own self underneath the character you asked me to play. So that's my first thing, my first love.
David, have you had, because I remember there's a very famous, you'll know this as well, Eamon, there's a famous interview with Peter Sellers, another great actor that would play lots of different parts.
Yes.
And he was interviewing, he started talking in a northern accent, and it was almost like he didn't have his own personality. You're not like that.
No.
But how much are you totally in it? I mean, you've got the method acting, so can you just turn it on and turn it off?
Basically, yes, that's what I like to do. And if you interviewed my wife, she's now turned her ears off now, so she doesn't. Any time an accent, somebody interesting comes on the television, and it might be, say, Irish, and I'd be sitting there and going, Pride. I know. Right. Okay, then. What is it that you're wanting? And because Ireland has, like we all have, different areas.
Absolutely.
Their accents vary depending on where they come from. Yeah. So I'll suddenly see one that's different, and I'll just repeat the word, all right, like that, because that particular word, I like the sound of it.
Yeah,
I like that because it's different to the other Irish accents.
Northern Irish is different than Southern Irish,
Yes.
and then you could get down to different degrees of that. You could all along. Did you ever want to be an impressionist?
No.
No?
No, not really, no. But funnily enough, you see, I did. But what happened was I got this job called Weekending, which was a wonderful radio show that I got myself married into, if you pardon the expression, years and years ago when I was young and hungry and would within reason, please, do anything to get the job. And they were searching for someone who could do accents and impersonate people who were in government. So I went along and interviewed for this thing. I'll tell you how it happened. I was with a very, very good friend who was a part of my journey through show business, who had helped me an awful lot, and his name was Humphrey Barclay. He was the one that, if you like, discovered me on the end of the pier in Bournemouth, which is another story. But the point was that he had a good friend that he knew, which was David Hatch, who was a chief executive, a bigwig in the BBC. So Humphrey and I went off just, for nothing really. He said, I'm going to meet a friend of mine. Come with me, he said, and we'll have a drink in the BBC bar. So we went, and I saw this, introduced to this producer type guy, and he was chatting to me, and he then said, have you ever worked on radio? And I said, no. He said, why not? And I said, well, nobody's asked me. He said, well, I'm asking you now. And I went, well, yes, if you got something I could play. So he said, right, okay, I'll give you a script. And that was it. Wow. And that was, I was into Weekending, which meant that you had to do impersonations of all the people in your specific area that were in government.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it was taking the mickey,
Yes.
if I may use that expression, on the government. And we used to record it Friday mornings, and it went out Friday night at about 5 to 11 o'clock.
Really was current affairs.
Yeah, current affairs. Yes, you're right. It was. And that was where my ability, if you like, to mimic people, and you learn very quickly how to do them. And one of those, James Callaghan, he was one I used to do. And he had this very special way of talking.
And moving his jaw about.
That's right.
I bet you when you were a kid at school, you would impersonate the teachers.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. That's how saved my life a number of times. Because there was a teacher there called Mr. Winter, and he was a pretty, tough teacher. He really was. And I just was able to do him. And what I used to do is to go out in the playground where the kids were all doing things they shouldn't do, climbing on ladders and what have you. And I used to be with my mates, and they'd say, go on, do him, do him, go on. So I'd say, hey, you boy, get off that bloody ladder. And they'd go, yeah. And the kids would go, huh? Freeze. And then my mates would be going, hey, team, he got you again. So that's...
Did Mr. Winter ever hear it? Did he ever?
I don't think he ever did. Never did.
He did a very good David Jason years later, you know, Mr. Winter. I mean, what are the chances? But when we're talking about voices, the Phantom Raspberry Blower of Old London Town, one of the most famous mini-series, wasn't it, in the two Ronnies? Is it true that you were the Raspberry Blower?
Yes. I have to
Is
say
it not a highlight of your career, David? I can see by the look on your face.
no. But it was part of my career. It was part of the job.
I was
That's what we
amazed. I was
had to
excited
do.
when I saw that.
Yeah, because I was a great fan of Ronnie Barker, as you know, if you've read the book. I constantly refer to Ronnie. He was one of the nicest and most generous of actors that you could have worked with. And what happened was that they were doing this series called The Phantom Raspberry Blower, and they needed somebody to blow raspberries. And so Ronnie, in his wisdom, said, I know who can blow a brilliant raspberry. Well, how he should know this, I really don't know. So, but what happened was that I got the job of being the raspberry blower. And the idea was that this phantom raspberry blower, every time he appeared or didn't appear or was in this, the scene or behind the scene or something had happened and he was the guilty one, you'd hear the raspberry that he blew, which goes something like this. Or... yeah, anyway. So what happened?
The magic's still there, isn't it?
It is. What happened was I had to blow raspberries to the
1812 overture, I see.
Yeah. So I couldn't think of it at the moment.
Yeah.
And Ronnie Barker, it was part of the plot that the Phantom Raspberry blew raspberries to the overture, right? So Ronnie Barker got me in the studio, and I was sitting in the studio like this, and Ronnie was on the other side of the glass, and Ronnie was going, right, and...
Orchestral. Brilliant.
He was conducting me in... It sounds ridiculous, but that's the sort of fun that you get. And you had to have someone who could do it and wouldn't be embarrassed or take it seriously, because it was an important part of their funny jokes that they were doing.
There's no doubt you had this way with your mouth, with vocals, with impressions, whatever. That's your first thing that you really like.
Yeah.
What would be the next one?
Well, originally, I think the next one was like space flight, space research, and flight. So because I couldn't do anything in space research, I wanted to fly. So I used to go on a Sunday morning to Dunstable Downs, and I used to sit there and watch the gliders flying, what they call hill soaring.
See, I would find that so scary. I know it's beautiful. And I always think of that, that Thomas Crown Affair film.
Oh, yeah.
With Steve McQueen.
Faye Dunaway.
Faye Dunaway. And it looks beautiful, but you have no control. There's no engine. There's no, it freaks me that. No, but that attracted you. You thought that was good.
Yeah, well, I could see people doing it. It was possible. It was capable. You can be towed up in the air, and then you can fly around on just the lift that comes out of the ground from the heat from the sun, or with the wind that hits the hillside and bounces up, and you can control an aircraft on that wind. And of course, once you become proficient, you can fly using the thermals that come up from the ground, you can go from A to B. Difficult, yes. But it was the cheapest way to get in the air. And of course, in those days, money was very tight. Very poor little actor, you know, hardly working. Excuse me, I just got to... I remember those days, I really do. Anyway, yeah, so I found that was the cheapest way to get in the air. And so I did, and I passed the test and all of that. And that drove me on to get more and more interested in it. And later on, when I was able to afford the cost of learning to fly a helicopter, because that was real freedom. I mean, you could get off at the airfield and fly to a private site or like an old house in the middle of nowhere, and you can land in the garden.
Yeah, wherever you wanted to be. Yeah. The thing that gets me about helicopter flying, have you ever been in a helicopter?
Yeah, oh yeah, a friend of mine, yeah.
It's the idea to fly one. I took a lesson once, and it just was too much for me because my brain had to coordinate with my hands, had to coordinate with my feet, had to do something diametrically opposite that the hands had to do, and it was too much for me.
Can I just say, we're not coming in the helicopter with you, by the way. It's probably not
not if he's taking controls. No way. Peter.
With the space stuff though, did you make the Saturn rockets? And because I remember around early 70s and 60s, you know, all the Airfix stuff. Because you like models, don't you? So
yeah, I used to build the models when I had downtime when I was doing Frost.
Yeah.
There was an awful lot of time when Amy would probably know this, that you're not on call all the time. There are scenes that don't include you, but they're important to the play or to the show, whatever it is. So you get downtime. And the worst thing that you can do in downtime is to sit in your caravan or wherever and just, slow down, and then you nod off. And then you're asleep, right? And
then
they
you
come
don't want to work.
yeah.
Yes. They knock on the door and they say, right, ready, Mr. Jason? Whoa. Well, now you've got to wake yourself up.
Yeah.
And it does take quite a lot of time to get the energy back. And so I thought, I can't do this. I mustn't do it that way because I get a bit sluggish. So I've got to keep my mind and everything active. So I thought, I know what I'll do. I'll build some models. So I started model building in my caravan, and the models that I built were rockets. The reason why they were rockets, as opposed to aircraft, is because you had to, if you had one with elastic band, you had to wind it up, and then you had to post it off, and then it would fly if you were lucky. And then it would crash somewhere, and that would be the end of it. Right, you know, so I decided rockets would be all right. They come down on their own parachute.
So these are proper. These aren't like Airfix things. These would actually fly, right?
Yeah, I've got one at home that I haven't launched yet, which is the Saturn V. Now, the Saturn V rocket, you can't get them anymore.
Right.
That was the one they sent on the Apollo missions.
Yeah. And it stands that high. I wish you could, listeners, you could see this. So it's about 5 foot, 4'6" anyway.
Yeah.
I've built it and I've got it in my garage. I'm still waiting for the weather, the right time to settle down so that I can launch it, because it's quite a big rocket.
We'd love to see that, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's funny you say the weather there. That could basically just put an end to everything. It just the wrong gust of wind or rain or anything like that. So
you're right.
Yeah.
So that's why you got to be a bit careful about when you launch it. But also, you can't, once you built it and you get it ready to fly, you have to wrap the parachutes up in a certain way. But you can't leave them wrapped up in the aircraft, I call it an aircraft, the rocket, for any length of time, because once she's launched and it pops the top end of the rocket, the control system pops out, because you have to have a special engine that has an explosive head on it in order to the basic Sorry, I'm getting very
This
technical.
is serious business. This is, oh, blimey.
It is.
This is like NASA. We have a problem here.
A rocket engine powers the aircraft up, and then when it reaches its apogee,
I don't know what that means.
that's why I said it. So, its apogee, and then there's could be 3 or a 5 second pause, and then the top end of the engine that has fired it up spins out a little explosion which sends the capsule off, and out comes the parachutes.
Yeah.
But the parachutes, if they've been wrapped up for something like 3 weeks or a month, they won't open.
Yeah.
Or they will open, but the time they do, it's hit the deck and the parachute goes, and comes down on its own. So it's quite technical stuff.
You're bringing me back. I'm remembering the Apollo missions and watching the telly in black and white, and I remember being about 10 years of age then. And one of the commentators was a man called James Burke.
Yes.
Yeah, and he was from Northern Ireland, right?
Was he?
Yeah. He had a posh accent, but he was from Derry, I think it was. And absolutely fascinating. I always looked at this man and thought, he's the most intelligent person you could ever possibly meet. He made it all accessible. He made it exciting to you. And I ended up doing this job. It was amazing. I got to meet him one time, and it was lovely just, why aren't there people like that on the telly anymore? We don't do things like that anymore.
Well, there's that scene.
No, you don't.
There's that scene where he walked across. Have you ever seen that? It's on YouTube, and he does this speech, and he walks across, and then he goes, and it ends up like this, turns round,
And the rocket
and then you
takes
see
off.
the rocket.
That's timing for you.
Yes.
That would be improbable.
I think we've got time for one more. So work, space. Is there one more, David, things that you like?
Yeah, I suppose I'd say in the multitude of things is people. And what I mean by that, I think, for me, is I meet an awful lot of people in my job as working as an actor. Most of the time, they're lovely, warm, rewarding people, clever, talented, and you can admire them and you think, how does he do that or she do that? They're great. But occasionally you'll get the one who is a pain in the tuchus. Because they take themselves too seriously.
Is this working, or is this just generally?
Both.
Right.
Both. But when you're working, it's wonderful to work as a team. I'm a great sort of believer in the team. It's a bit like us here. We've sitting at this table and we've all got our mics and all that. But what you're relying on, excuse me, these teeth. I put them in only this morning. Yeah. You're relying on the people in the control rooms to balance us, to make sure that we come over, that you can hear us, so there's no whistle or all the technical stuff. And you also need somebody to organise, like who we're going to get on. You two guys, you're going to get, we get David Jason. Oh, he's coming on. Yeah, well, have you got so-and-so? He's coming on. Right, but what time? And so you need a team around you, and you must appreciate that team. And there can be all good fun. When you don't, that's when the friction starts. And you get the thing where it's the hierarchy, the pecking order, that I'm at the top of the pecking order and I look down on you. So what I say, you have to do. And you look up to me, but then you go, all right, I see. Then beneath you, you've got...
Take it out the other one.
You take it out, you pass it down. And what happens then, it becomes a self-fulfilling process. Whereas the opposite is much better, because we could all have fun, communicate, and you get the best out of people. Yeah. But that's when it's lovely and you love people.
And you talk about getting the best out of people in your book, which is called This Time Next Year. The subtitle is A Life of Positive Thinking.
Yep.
Which I think there's a lot of truth in that. I think there's a lot to take away from that, and I'm not sure. I mean, sometimes I think positively, sometimes I don't. I'd like to do it consistently. Are you a positive thinker?
That's interesting that you say that, because if we analyse it for a moment, it's just a number of words. a life of positive thinking. Now, what does it actually mean? And so when you start to analyse it a bit, is positive thinking is exactly what I've just talked about teamwork, team effort, about relying on other people. And if you're going to rely on other people, help them to enjoy it because it's part of life's rich pattern. So that is, I suppose, encompasses that word, a life of positive, or those words, positive thinking. You can explain it a number of ways, but the way that I like to explain it is that way, is being positive, which means finding the best, and the best out of all of us. I can't do this show without you two, for example, because it's your show. But also, we can't do this without the technical expertise of the people providing the mic. And then they rely on the people who've made the radio waves, and so it goes on and on and on and on. So if we analyse a life of positive thinking, that, I suppose, boils down to trying to be on the up, on the positive side of life, and not the negative side. So, sorry, I just saw a producer waving at me then. So, sorry. So, yeah, that is very rewarding to me.
Yeah. Well, we couldn't have done this show without you.
Oh.
You are our star guest, and really, I mean, for both Paul and I, we're of an age and a stage. We have witnessed all your best work. We have savoured all your best work. It's an absolute thrill to be in the same room as you and to listen to your stories, regaling them over. We could listen to you all day, but we have to say goodbye, don't we?
We do. David, can we come to your rocket launch?
Yes, I tell you what, we could have gone on and here all day. We could have chatted amongst ourselves, couldn't we?
Come back next week. We'll have another go.
Yeah, all right.
Great to see you. Thank you so much.
Sir David Jason, thank you very much indeed. Well, what a privilege that was. What a nice man he was.
I know. See, the thing is, you get famous people, and sometimes they're not as nice as you imagine them to be.
Very true.
And it's the old don't meet your heroes or that sort of stuff. But David Jason, first time I've met him, I know you've met him before, first time for me, and it was unbelievably exciting.
Very enthusiastic about things. You can tell he's in a profession, in a career that he loves. And they always say, when you do something you love, you never work a day in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of our greatest actors, and a character actor, and everything's different. You know, everybody's always, Del Boy this, Del Boy that. Yeah. But I think we got into more stuff about him.
Helicopter pilot.
Yeah.
You know, that's what he is as well.
Model maker.
Smart man.
Yeah.
You can tell all those things. What the heck's he talking to us for?
I don't know.
But anyway, it was very, very enjoyable. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching.